Welcome back to Throwing It Down. It's Mitty D, and as you can see, we have a different setting than usual. But today I thought we'd do something different. I'm outside, chilling, playing some disc golf. And what I'm going to be doing is talking about the top 18, maybe 17 wide receivers. And I'm going to be talking about them as I play each hole. So however far my drive goes is how long I get to talk about them. So I might get to talk about them for a minute. I might get to talk about them for 20 seconds, but we will see. And this hole specifically is up that walking path, and we'll see how far I go. So enjoy this journey with me. All right. First up, we have Justin Jefferson, wide receiver on the Minnesota Vikings. Absolutely smashed it last year. Was quite inconsistent throughout the year. He had a couple games where he didn't even catch that many balls, but his ceiling is the highest out of any player. He demands the most targets. One question about him is he's going to have a lot more competition in the passing game this year. So some of the games last season were with TJ Hawkinson, who's going to stay on the team, and he's also going to have Jordan Addison be his number 2, which is a huge upgrade from Adam Thielen, because Adam Thielen wasn't doing much throughout the year. But I still think he's number 1 because he has that consistent top-notch target share, and he's on a team that's going to score a lot, and they're going to need to score a lot because of their defense, and their defense is going to struggle. All right, at my drive. Oh gosh, I already forgot what I was doing this whole time. So number 2, Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp on the Rams. Matthew Stafford's number 1 receiver. He demands so many targets. They don't have any competition at number 2 this year. Similarly to last year, he was the number 1 wide receiver through the first 8 weeks of the year, averaging over 20 points a game. The Rams are going to not be good on defense. They're going to need to throw similar to the Vikings. And instead of like Justin Jefferson, they're going to actually need Cooper Kupp to do everything. Justin Jefferson has some help. Cooper Kupp number 2. I'm at my drive. That's it. All right, number 3, we have Ja'Marr Chase, a real contender for number 1 this year. When healthy, Ja'Marr Chase clearly the number 1 target for Joe Burrow. They use him short in a lot of screens. They use him in a lot of deep balls. Joe Burrow will throw it to him in double, even triple coverage sometimes. If Joe Burrow feels like he has the advantage, he's not afraid to throw it to Ja'Marr Chase. He knows his capabilities. The Bengals team, playing in a really difficult division, whose secondaries have worsened from last year to this year. Baltimore lost some of their top defenders who were giving Ja'Marr Chase real trouble. Kind of funny how they didn't in his rookie year, and then in his sophomore year, gave him a lot of trouble. But at my drive, I think Ja'Marr Chase has a really good shot to be the number 1 receiver this year. Kind of cheating because this is after my drive, but I want to add Ja'Marr Chase, I feel like, has one of the better chances to be the number 1 receiver because T. Higgins has a history with injuries. Ja'Marr Chase had his hip injury last year, but that was really his only thing. And along with that, when Ja'Marr Chase is injured, T. Higgins typically doesn't really assume that number 1 role. They really spread the ball out and use receivers equally. So it just shows how much they actually rely on Ja'Marr Chase to be that number 1 guy, and how T. Higgins improves from being in that number 2 position, and he doesn't thrive in the number 1. I'm becoming exhausted, but number 4, we have Tyreek Hill. Sorry I didn't show my drive there. There were other human beings on the fairway, but we have Tyreek Hill, number 1 receiver when Tua was healthy. There's really no wondering. I didn't throw a great drive, so this is going to be quick. But Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle both benefit from each other. Clearly, they're better with Tua on the field. We have to hope Tua stays healthy. But if he does, another chance for a number one receiver at not the top pick and towards the later end of the first round. Consistently gets over 10 points. He's not going to have a dud week because of his versatility in the Dolphins scheme. All right. I messed up. So at number 5, it was Tyreek Hill. At number 4, Davante Adams. So it seemed like Davante Adams really benefited from Derek Carr because Derek Carr would throw it long all the time, and Davante Adams is a great possession or a great catching receiver. So throwing it long actually benefited Davante Adams' value. What was really interesting is how inconsistent Davante Adams was throughout the year. Sometimes he had a game with 1 catch and 3 yards. That's not a great thing you want to have as your wide receiver 1, obviously, but his ceiling is so high because he's so great at catching the ball. Having Jimmy G, a more stable quarterback, he's going to be the wide receiver 1. He has had great receivers like Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk, and I believe that Jimmy G will at least continue Davante Adams' relevance as a top wide receiver in the NFL. And because of that, he's got to be number 4. All right. You don't have to worry about inconsistency. What is Jimmy G going to do to his value? Jimmy G is a good quarterback who is good. All right. We're back on track. Fixed the issue. Davante at number 4. Tyreek at number 5, actually. Number 6, we have CeeDee Lamb. Let's go over why CeeDee Lamb's number 6, even though I don't think he's that great of an NFL receiver. CeeDee Lamb is a fantastic slot receiver in Dallas. The reason why, he started performing well towards the end of the year and wasn't great towards the beginning is Dak Prescott. He got hurt. Cooper Rush's primary target was Noah Brown. Noah Brown's not on the team anymore. Ipso facto, it's going to be CeeDee Lamb. But in all seriousness, CeeDee Lamb is a great receiver. He has struggled with catching the ball, if you really want to nitpick him. And that's why I personally don't think he's that great of an NFL receiver, but he clearly has the ability to perform even amongst those drops. And he has so much volume. With Gallup and Cooks on the outside, you actually have 2 threats in the passing game along with him. And Dallas's passing attack will be more efficient this year. Just to add to CeeDee Lamb's top performance that I'm projecting, we also have Tony Pollard coming off an ankle injury with no backup. If Ronald Jones is your backup, Tony Pollard's going to be the top guy. If they bring in somebody like Zeke or Leonard Fournette, that's where you're going to have to start looking at CeeDee Lamb maybe being slightly lower on the list because of the added receiving that Tony Pollard can bring, because he's proficient at that, and Dak will look for him. But if Tony Pollard's in all the game, they're not going to want to use him all the time. So that's why CeeDee is at a higher level currently than other receivers. I'm so stupid because I keep on forgetting. I don't even know who I have at number 7. All right. I think I got all my anger issues out. At numero 7, we have A.J. Brown. This is the player I was alluding to that's better than CeeDee Lamb that has a worse situation than CeeDee Lamb, so he can't be higher on the wide receivers list. He plays in an offense that prioritizes rushing the ball, and not only rushing the ball, but also rushing the ball at the goal line. He's one of the most potentially bad picks in the first round, and because if the Eagles' rushing attack improves, they have a new running back in DeAndre Swift, who's great in the passing game as well, even though Jalen Hurts doesn't utilize them that much. It could be bad for A.J. Brown, but just like last year, why I was so high on Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown is because they do pass the ball deep. They clearly are an analytics-driven team that improve on what they know is important to win in the NFL and to gain yards, which is a deep passing game, which A.J. Brown is phenomenal at. He's phenomenal at slants, one of the best receivers at those, as well as deep catches. A discount Devontae Adams, if you want an actual comparison, but A.J. Brown's a little more physical and a little bigger. There's no one really like him in the NFL, and he's really good, the number one option. He has competition for Devontae Smith, but we saw both of them have great seasons last year. Another reason against A.J. Brown could be Dallas Goedert. He was injured for, I believe, six weeks last year. So those targets that went to A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith instead of Dallas Goedert could bring him down a little bit, as well as now they have a proper two-headed rushing attack. Instead of Miles Sanders and Kenneth Gainwell, we have Rashad Penny and Swift. So a lot of uncertainty with A.J. Brown, but a genuinely great player who deserves to be picked in the top 10 receivers because of his crazy potential as one of the best receivers in the league. These hills out here are rough, but the show goes on at numero ocho. Nosotros tenemos Stefon Diggs. He was absolutely a baller last season. His fantasy stock decreased throughout the year. Basically, the dud week in week 17, because they stopped the game, really hurt his ending of the year status. He was going to absolutely destroy the Cincinnati Bengals in that game. Josh Allen was throwing it to him a ton. And before the Damar Hamlin situation ended, that's all I got on Stefon Diggs. I'm sorry I couldn't give you more info. Bad drive. All right. At number 9, we have Amon-Ra St. Brown. An absolutely bonkers season from the dude. Seems like he had a touchdown, 9 receptions, and 80 yards in every game. He is the consistency that team needs. They're freaking awesome with him at that wide receiver 1 position. And with Jameson Williams out, his target share is going to be fantastic. They got rid of TJ. He's the number 1 dude on every play. I feel really confident about Amon-Ra being a top 10 receiver basically every week all season. He is the consistency that every receiver strives for, and picking him up in a regular fantasy draft has got to be a top priority for everyone. All right. I decided I'm only going to do 10 receivers because it's freaking exhausting talking and walking up and down these hills. At number 10, we have Jalen Waddle. Some people may say Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown are the best wide receiver duo in the league. But I think it's Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle because they're so similar in their gameplay, their running style, their route running, and Jalen Waddle really underperformed as a top 10 receiver last year. Him and Tyreek, when Tua was out, had 0 touchdowns. That's got to change if Tua gets injured. And Tua's out so many weeks that they could have been number 1 and number 2 receiver if, Tua played the whole year. And because they're so dominant in the Dolphins passing game, this is a good drive. It's just a no-brainer to have them both in the top 10 of receivers. Jalen Waddle in college, I know he's 2 years removed, but in college, Waddle was a big play receiver. I think his average was over 20 yards a catch, and on touchdown plays, it was close to 40 yards per touchdown he caught. That's nuts. I know the NFL is different than college, but Mike McDaniels knows that Tyreek and Jalen Waddle, if they're one-on-one on anybody, McDaniels will know to tell Tua, focus on this man on this play, because one person cannot cover either of those players. Tyreek is obviously the more well-known threat, leaving Jalen Waddle on an island more often, which will benefit his fantasy style. An absolute great pick, and potentially could outperform Tyreek Hill this year. He's a fast dude, and the Dolphins are a scary team. Like, their whole offense is absolutely terrifying. The only thing that's a potential issue is their offensive line. Hopefully they deal with that throughout the offseason. And that's it for my top 10. Let me know if you like the special edition style that I did. I used less statistics this time and more opinion, more feel, and we got beautiful nature. And lovely disc golf. So I hope you enjoyed. Comment, see if I messed up anywhere, who you would rather see in the top 10. I think wide receivers are much easier to pick as top players than running backs, because running backs, there's a lot of top running backs on about 20 to 24 teams that could be top 10 picks, making them a much more difficult position to rank. Receivers are much more obvious who the best ones are. Not a lot entered this year as rookies, and the ones that did are not going to be the number 1 receiver on their given team. So have a good day. Leave a like, subscribe, comment. Peace out.